Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
This is the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
We rolling on Golic and Wingo. Cliff, he gets us. ESPN Radio at ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Trey Wingo, Mike Golic Jr. Lots to get to. We've had some interesting things on social play thanks to Junior's karaoke night out with thousands of people that he works with and sees very rarely. That'll be up a little bit later on. We'll have some tweets for that. What do you want out of your new commissioner? We'll have some of those as well.
A lot of you have talked about the mugs that are on our set here, and we're going to start giving some of those away as well. Some nice mugs that you can, might as well give as a Christmas present, right? Save you some money from buying anything.
Where's mine?
Yeah, or people like, really, that's what you gave me?
Pretty much.
Really?
Yeah.
I got a mug.
I got a mug
with those 2 Mopes' name on it. Thanks. Boy, you think the world of me.
Yeah.
Great stocking stuffers.
Thanks. Actually fill the entire stocking. Oh my gosh! All right. By the way, we're getting some interesting tweets in. We're getting some interesting tweets in there on what we should sing. Someone says that you and I should sing, Mike. I Got You, Babe, from Sunday.
Oh, there you go. I like that.
Yeah.
You know what I want people in the again up there? Which ESPN personality and what would you choose for them to sing in karaoke? I'm trying to think of what you would make Tony Kornheiser sing. That's where I'm going.
Wow.
What would
Party in the
TK
USA?
sing?
Dancing in the Streets.
How great would that be?
Yeah.
For example, we put up on Twitter Stephen A. Smith singing "Scream and Shout," which makes all the sense.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Will Kane singing "Fireman."
Yeah.
I don't see Stephen A.
There's
though.
a pregnant pause of silence.
Yeah,
there,
strong response from everyone in the studio
Yeah,
here.
thanks
We
for
were
that.
workshopping that one
I have a
behind
tough
the
time
scenes.
thinking Stephen A. is going to do well in the little bit softer now
However,
part. Yeah,
he might.
A little
You
bit
just never
softer
know.
now. He won't be able to
Yeah.
get down with the softer part.
Yeah, that's also true. Okay, so we talked about this before, and it's a really interesting article that came out on SportsIllustrated.com. Right now, you can only diagnose CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, after someone has died. But the Boston University CTE Center believes that in as little as 5 years, there might be a test that you could take to determine whether or not you have it while you're alive, number one,
Right.
and while you're an active player in a contact sport like football, hockey, soccer, whatever, where you have a lot of lacrosse, anything that involves collisions and using your head a lot, or collisions at the head. And they actually talked to a bunch of current NFL players about that situation. If, for example, one of the questions they asked was, if there was a test to diagnose CTE, would you take it? Among those they asked was Kirk Cousins, the quarterback. He said, yeah, sure. I think there are other guys who would play regardless. It's not going to change the way I approach the game, so why should it be hanging over my head? They asked Tahir Whitehead, the Lions linebacker. For sure, I think it would be a good idea. Chris Long, who is a really insightful guy, said, I would take it, but I would also be very careful not to predictable behavior to my results, to add predictable behavior to my results. I don't believe it's a slam dunk that if you have CTE, you're going to, and we have in quotes here, lose it. He went on to say, we're probably going to be the last generation that will have no idea what's going on with our brains. I think the next generation is really going to know a lot. So let me ask you two guys. Mike, you played, 9 years in the NFL?
Yep.
Junior, you played in college and, of course, went to training camps in the NFL. If there was a test right now that could tell you whether or not you had CTE, would you take it?
Yeah, in a heartbeat.
What would be your reason for taking it?
Because I always think knowing more helps. I think understanding your situation allows you to help control it a little bit better, or at least address the realities of it. And within the larger context of this conversation, this would be the next step in proving a lot more of what Chris Long is talking about here. Is there, is correlation causation in a lot of these cases? Is the understanding that CTE has a link to head trauma and some of the things that we've seen, but is it the driving force? All of that gets answered once you can start to diagnose in the living.
There is that part of the research which would, from that standpoint, I would almost feel like there's an obligation to do it. Now we're just talking about professional athletes. Certainly, if there's a test you can do for the living, and you could do it for younger, from high school on, did you see what are the percentages? If you could start finding that out, all great for research. But we're talking about the NFL players now, and players who have played a long time like we have.
Would you want to know?
My first thought was this. My first thought was, no, not until I knew there was a cure. Why would I want to know I have something if I can't do anything about it? That was my initial thought.
Uh-huh.
My initial thought was, well, is there a cure, or are you just telling me I have it? You know, when we get...
I think the premise of the survey was just to know whether or not you were going to have it or not.
There was part of me, my initial thought was no. If I can't do anything about it, listen, we get tested for all sorts of bad diseases now, and one of the reasons you get early detection is you can start treatments for them. Right now, there's no treatment for CTE. So my first thought was, why would I want to know? Because there's nothing I can do about it. Then I start thinking and going, okay, are there different stages of CTE? So if I test that out, and while I'm playing and I find out, yes, I have it, but stage 1, I don't know, is there 4 stages? Stage 1 of it, do I then go, okay, I am at stage 1, do I stop playing? Do I make the decision now to say, okay, I have that, I don't have stage 4, or 3, if I'm at stage 1, I can still make the choice maybe to stop playing and maybe it won't go any further. So I start to add questions like that into the equation, but I'll be honest, my initial thought was, if you can't cure it, why the hell do I want to know?
And I think my response to that would be, again, kind of what my point in the beginning of this was and what Chris Long's is when you say if there's not a cure, that indicates that the presence of it means there's something wrong. And that's what we don't always know yet. Is it just by it being there, does that mean you're subject to the dementia, the links to ALS, all these other things that supposedly come from this? And that's the thing that we don't know. So by you saying, well, I would only want to know if there's a cure, requires that there's something to be cured necessarily.
So, as I said, that was my first thought. In thinking more about it, I would think I would have to do it. I do think there is, obligation is the wrong word. You're not obligated to do anything. But the one thing that has to come along with it, if a player does it, because we want to find out, the causation, is you have to be truthful about your history. Have you done drugs? Have you done steroids? How many opioids have you taken in your career? You have to be, because we need to collect everything, correct? Would you agree with that? You need to be, you can't just say, yes, he has it, no, he doesn't have it, without having a history of what you have been doing up to that point or even past that point, other than repetitive hits to the head. Because, that's the one part of it that I still, as we're getting more and more research, to just say this causes it no matter what, nothing else is involved. When we don't know that yet, it can certainly be part of it, but you need to be honest with the rest of your history as far as what you've taken and what you've done.
Well, listen, Artie Burns was one of the players that they talked to, the Steelers cornerback, and I thought his answer was interesting. He's in his second year in the NFL, okay? He said, I definitely know I have it. I'm going to test positive for that test. Is it going to tell me how much I have, to your question about it? We play a physical game, man. Humans aren't made to run into each other like that. I thought. Well, I don't know. I don't know what his situation or background is that would make him think he knows he has it. But look, it's hard to get away from the idea that eventually, I think this is going to be a situation that Nick Buoniconti, for example, went on for years and years and years and had no issues whatsoever, and now only in the last few years has he really had some issues that have really changed his perspective on his playing days and what it meant to him. And he's a guy that's been through a lot. He saw his son paralyzed from the neck down in a game at the Citadel, and suddenly for years he was like, well, it might not be that bad, and now he's realizing in a much later stage in his life that, man, this is maybe much worse than I thought it could possibly be.
The only thing I'll say to maybe put a bow on all of this is what strikes it as different for me is something that I immediately thought of when this came up, and this was the idea. It was Jake Dowell, who was an NHL player for a while with the Blackhawks, who for a long time put off getting tested for Huntington's disease, something that had ravaged his family. It was a devastating story.
It's an awful
His father had died from it. He had a brother who suffered from it, and he had put off for a long time. He had about 50-50 shot of knowing that, all right, if I have this, I know exactly what this is going to do to the trajectory of my life. We know the effects that has. So if he had gotten that in the test, he got a clean bill of health, so thankfully for him, that was not a part of his life. But there was certainty in knowing. There is no certainty in and knowing if you were to test in the living for CTE, what that would mean. That would be the beginning of understanding. That would be the beginning of saying, all right, if we test and we see that there are a lot of folks like you and I who are up here, who are of sound mind and body, who have this present, all right, how can that still be a part of the conversation? How does that change the way we look at this?
I agree, because that's why I said my initial thought was, if there's not a cure, I don't want to know, but I've evolved to that as my initial thought to, I would get it done, because it could just mean too much to research. And really, a quick thought on Artie Burns, and he is absolutely entitled to his opinion. That scares me, because there have been more than a few people who were absolutely positively sure they had it. And the first sign of, oh, my God, I forgot my keys or I forgot this, oh, it's manifesting itself. And these were younger people, and they killed themselves. And after they killed themselves, their brain was looked at, and they did not have CTE. So that's the part where, Artie, I say, man, be careful of that, saying, I know I have it. So anything, and that goes into what Chris Long said of, but be careful of any little thing that may happen. You say, well, that's CTE, and now I'm going to die because of that. Because we've seen, as I said, on the other end, younger people that have killed themselves and never had it. So I hope they get this way sooner rather than later, and I do agree. Yes, you should be get tested for this, because it can only help in the research.
Look, this is a discussion we'll continue to have on this show, and obviously one that we'll continue to have going forward in the sport. The bottom line, the only certainty you would get from the test is knowing that you have it one way or the other, and that's what it is right now.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr. All right, we roll on through the first hour. Golic and Wingo, Trey Wingo, Mike Golic Jr. here with you. Aaron Rodgers, look, he could be cleared. He's cleared, but he could be activated as early as Friday. That's the deal. After missing 7 weeks with the broken collarbone, he put out there on Instagram that he's back and ready to roll. He's, I'm healthy. I'm ready to look forward to this. Mike McCarthy was talking about it as well. They've sort of found a way to sort of stay in it. They're 7-6. Right now, heading into a huge game this weekend in Carolina against the Panthers, and a very, very good defense. Aaron Rodgers talked to the folks in Green Bay, and let's just say some of us here think he was a little less than truthful.
I'm just going to bring you the energy and enthusiasm that I always do to practice. Obviously, I think there's an expectation of the way I play on Sunday and how I'm going to play. I enjoy those expectations. I enjoy meeting those or exceeding those. That's what it means to be a leader in this locker room and the quarterback of this team is going out and performing and doing your job. Hopefully it gives a lift to some of the guys, but I'm not coming back to save this team. I'm coming back to play quarterback the way I know how to play it, and hopefully we all raise the level of our play collectively and find a way to win these 3 games.
Let's stop that now.
I completely agree with him. He's coming back to play quarterback the way he plays quarterback, which can save this team.
There it is.
I mean, come on. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, man, we always say the Packers are in it because they have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. That is exactly, he is coming back. So he may not want to think that, but everybody, including all the people sitting in that room with him, are thinking that.
Being on a football team is about knowing your role, whether it's being a special teamer, whether it's being a backup swing offensive lineman and finding a way to influence the game when you get a chance. Bringing effort and energy is the job of guys like that. Aaron Rodgers, your role is to go out there and win them these damn football games because Lord knows the Packers haven't put a competent enough roster around you for the most part in the rest of it to really give you tons of help in this outside of Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams.
And while we appreciate the way he goes about his business,
he's
saying, hey, I'm just here to play my role, and he doesn't want to diminish what anyone else is doing, let's just not kid ourselves, okay? He's coming. If he's just there to not save the team, then let's just roll Brett Hundley out there. I mean,
exactly.
Look, you give the Packers the best chance to win, and kudos to Brett Hundley for coming back from 14 down in the fourth quarter, sending that game to overtime in Cleveland and getting the W. But Aaron Rodgers is there because they believe he gives the Packers the best chance to win these last 3 games and put them in a position to get into the playoffs. That's why he's playing. That's the only reason he's playing, right? Because he can do things that other players can't. And the second level plays, the second reaction plays, where you make chicken salad out of you-know-what, that's what he does better maybe than anyone in the NFL.
Yeah.
That's why he's out there.
Yeah, and I get it. He's just not going to say it. He's not going to stand up there and say,
nor should he, but let's just be honest.
Yeah.
But it'd be kind of cool if he did.
Yeah, wouldn't it be so? Hey, guys, here, wait a minute. Hold on before I start this interview. Let me get my cape.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and strap on the feed bag prematurely on this one. It's going to be a long weekend.
I tell you, a guy who's going to love having him back now is a guy who got a little more involved in the last 2 weeks with 2 wins was Jordy Nelson.
Football and farmer, baby.
2 weeks ago, he had 5 catches. Last week, 4. Before that, 3, 2, 3. A couple weeks before that, 1. So he's a guy that, he and Aaron Rodgers have that special kind of quarterback receiver bond. So I think you'll see him getting back into the flow along with others because Aaron can spread it around. But, yeah, let's make no mistake here. He is out there. He's out there to get this team a shot at the playoffs. And as I said, if he doesn't win this week, they're going to be done. He's going to want to keep playing. Then the decision will be very interesting. Do you keep him out there or just kind of bag the rest of the season and make sure he doesn't get hurt anymore? I have a feeling once he's back out on the field, he's going to be back out on the field for good.
Totally agree. So that was Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. And we had Thomas Davis, actually, the outstanding linebacker for the Panthers on NFL Live yesterday. And he said, we're going to find out quickly how healthy that collarbone is.
Yeah.
You know how that goes. You test it.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night. Yeah. No doubt about it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Hey girl, have you done something new with your scales? Using new moisturizer? Nice. It really brings out the hazel in your eyes. Oh, hold on. Are you using whitening strips too? Your fangs look good, girl. Really good.
A really charming snake charmer? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Wait, what? Have you been doing Pilates too?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
If you had Thursday of the third week when the show completely fell apart, congratulations, you won.
Yeah.
Because
I'm just dragging this thing into the abyss.
Or saving us from ourselves.
Yeah.
One way or the other. For those that weren't with us earlier, again, Mikey was out last night having a good time, karaoke with some ESPN.
All the ESPN quote-unquote talent, which is
people in front of a microphone.
Yeah,
or
in town
a writer.
For a huge meeting, and rarely are all these people in one spot. So Mike went out with a few of them last night, and they ended up doing some karaoke. So Mike had the question earlier, and we threw it out on our social. Pick somebody from ESPN, a personality from ESPN. What song should they karaoke? Like Chris tweets in Timmy Kirkshin, Little Drummer Boy.
See, now I would pay for that.
I would pay for that.
Kidding me?
Hold
on. Parumpa pum pum. I would do that.
To
Just
see
often.
Tim Kirkshin, who is this adorable little man, dressed up as a little drummer boy, rap-a-papping on the drum.
Oh, wait. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on a minute. We have found new ground.
He's coming?
We have exclusive audio of Junior from the other night.
You're gonna have dizziness, nausea, and swelling eyelids, and in some cases, chronic flatulence.
So gassy, girl.
So gassy.
What was that?
That was a commercial. Boys to Men on that commercial,
I did
right?
Moonlight and Boys to Men for a time.
Yes, you did.
A lot of vocal range in that one, too. You guys are welcome. I just keep...
About that.
I came in. You called me Santa Claus. I got gifts for you guys
You
all
really
day today.
did.
We'd like to thank you for that.
Christopher treats in John Gruden, Back in Black.
That would be a good
he's
one.
like that old classic rock and roll. He would dig that a lot.
Are you guys impressed by me?
You did well there.
Have I endeared myself to the show to justify that hour you guys wasted?
As if you haven't done that already.
Yeah.
Oh, shucks, guys.
Oh, stop.
All right, here's what we got coming up later on. Later on this hour, Cadet Simone Askew, the first African-American woman Army first captain, will join us. Huge honor for her last week as she led the cadets onto the field for the Army-Navy game. Ron Rivera, the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, will talk about whether or not he thinks Aaron Rodgers is there to try to save the Packers season against his Panthers. That'll be very good. And Scottie Pippen will join us in the 9 o'clock hour, talk about all things in the NBA, including what is not working with the Oklahoma City Thunder, even though they won last night in Indiana.
A couple of stories before that, one involving kids on a plane, but involving a star, George Clooney and his wife. They were flying to London, and they have 6-month-old twins. And we all know babies on a plane. Anybody who's flown, crying babies on a plane.
What's worse on a plane? Snakes on a plane, crying babies on a plane.
Here's the
Put
thing.
it up on the Twitter feed. Come on, let's go.
Social. You don't get the show. And I always got aggravated. With people that get aggravated.
Yeah.
It's like, you think the parents want these kids to be crying?
That's one of the worst people in the world, right? The person who is like audibly frustrated with someone else's baby and makes the parent feel bad about it.
I actually have a very personal story about that. Okay, before I was here, I was working in St. Louis. And I had to fly from somewhere to New York, and I was sitting on a plane next to this guy, and he had a metal suitcase, one of those silver metal hard case suitcases. And the flight attendant came to take it away from him. He's like, "Hey, man, don't scratch that thing. Don't scratch that thing. I paid a lot. Don't scratch that thing." So they put it up over, and there was a parent with a baby like 2 rows behind him, and the baby was crying.
Right.
And he kept saying, "If that kid doesn't shut up, I don't know what I'm going to do." He went on for like 20 minutes. Finally, you know me. I'm not a fighter, okay?
Right.
But I had 2 little kids at this time. I looked at him and said, "If you don't shut up about that parent, I'm going to take that suitcase you care so much and shove it straight up."
Wow, nice.
I had it with that loser being so concerned about his freaking metal suitcase and killing that parent who's doing everything he could to try and keep that baby quiet.
What did the guy say?
He just looked at me like, "I can't believe you just said it." And as soon as the plane took off, I went on and took another seat on the plane. That was like the most bowed up thing I've ever done in my life. I did it for the parents.
Yeah,
I did it for the parents.
Not going to lie, I've done that a few times on the plane as well.
And it was probably more effective by you than
but I
with
just
me
get
saying it.
so aggravated. Oh yeah, the parents want that kid to be crying.
Exactly, they're trying their hardest to make.
I mean, I've heard plenty of stories. Like I remember Mom telling a story about when she was traveling alone with me and Jake, and essentially begged God to crash the plane. We were so miserable.
Horrible time.
It is an abject hell for the people involved.
I guess this happens when you are a millionaire many times over.
Yes.
George Clooney and his wife.
Not my story, but
no,
story.
George Clooney. So he and his wife and the 6-month-old twins were on board, and before the plane took off, to everybody around them, they passed out noise-canceling brand-new headphones.
Very nice.
So all the people around them. And they basically said, we're sorry in advance if our kids get a little... we apologize ahead of time if the twins cry. Of course, he has a tequila company, and they had the logo of the tequila company on it.
Never a bad
But still, brand new noise-canceling headphones to all the passengers around him that were sitting around their kids.
And this made you think of another Clooney story.
Another Clooney. This is fantastic. I guess when George came to L.A., to be that actor, there were a lot of people that helped him out. He slept on a lot of couches and people that put him up for a while and helped him out.
Tales old as time.
So... He has his group he calls the Boys, and he told them at one point, he said, mark September 27th, 2013 on your calendar to all the boys. He says, everyone's coming to my house for dinner. And he said, I just want to show all you guys how much you meant to me and how much you mean to me in my life. So he's at this dinner. All these 14 people show up. And where they're going to sit for dinner is a designer large suitcase, brand new. And in each suitcase is $1 million in cash in 20s. He gave 14 people $1 million in cash to say thank you to them for how they helped him.
George, if you're listening, anything you need, man, I am here for you, buddy.
Yeah.
Call right now. There's no time of day that's bad for me. I will be there in a heartbeat for a price.
And
very impressive.
And there were some people that were very well off, and they donated the money, which certainly brings up another question. Anybody paying taxes on that or how all that went up?
Hey, don't ruin it. Don't ruin it.
That's why you do it in 20s. It's a low enough denomination.
14 brand new suitcases full of $1 million in 20s. That's unreal.
That's one of those. I thought it was going to be like 14 suitcases packed for a trip. No. I would much rather take the cash option on that one.
Fantastic.
Give me the lump sum. Yeah. I could do a lot with $1 million that the government doesn't have to know about.
Cool story.
Very cool.
Wow.
So this all started with George because of trying to be a good parent and take care of the people around him with those noise-canceling phones on the planes for his twins that are very young. Speaking of parenting, we had Charles Barkley on the show.
Yes, we did.
Yesterday. Mm-hmm. And let's just say he had some very strong opinions about what he thinks of LeVar Ball's parenting.
I just feel bad for those kids because, everybody talk about he might be a good father, this and that. No, he's not. He's just exploiting his kids. His kids, I love the kid playing for the Lakers. I don't know the other two kids. He's all about big baller brand. He has no foreseeable talent. He's trying to make money on his kids. And I just feel sadness for those kids because they're going to do whatever he tells them to do. And I just don't like the guy at all, plain and simple. And don't tell me he's a good father. Just because you exploit your kids trying to make money because you have no talent, that does not make you a good father. That makes you exploiting your kids. And I don't like the guy at all, and I wish they would quit putting him on television because he has no talent whatsoever.
Strong, huh? Yeah, kind of strong.
Charles never holds back.
Listen,
we'll tell you that.
You know how we somewhat feel the same way about LeVar. I wouldn't go as far. I don't know him as a parent. I see some of the decisions he's making, and I don't think they're decisions that I certainly would make, but I also don't know the relationship between the boys and the father as well. But I certainly have my issue with a lot of the things that he does, but you know, I don't know that dynamic there, but I do certainly question some of the decisions.
Yeah, and this is a place where I sort of recognize the different place that I come at this from, because I look at LeVar Ball as a person who, personally, like you said, I don't know LeVar Ball, so my interest in him as a person is very low. It's not someone in my life, but my interest in the ideas that he's brought up, like we talked about with Jerry Jones and Roger Goodell, he's brought up interesting points about the idea of building a brand for yourself instead of having to, kowtow to the normal players in those games, whether it's shoes, apparel, or otherwise. Alternate routes against the NCAA that we've heard talked about anyway, that now he's exploring in a roundabout way with his sons. It may be grounded in selfishness. I don't know. I don't know him enough to question that, and I don't really care enough because those things are more interesting to me. But I heard this brought up on the Dan Lebitard show with Stugatz the other day, and Dan made this point, and I thought it was, I kind of asked you guys the other day, there seems to be a difference in the way that parents and non-parents respond to LeVar Ball. I, as a non-parent, someone who can't really grasp that relationship of a father or a mother and a child, maybe have the luxury of being able to just look at LeVar Ball as the things that come off him in his wake, the things that I can pick as interesting, while you guys are, I think, more conditioned to see the humanity of that relationship.
Absolutely. Look, once you become a parent, you hope that most people realize that's the most important job you'll ever have.
Yep.
And you want to make sure that you would do anything you want to protect those kids and make sure that they're okay and do anything you can to help them. And I think that, like you, I don't know the relationship. I can't speak to that.
Right.
And I don't want to be that guy that's making a judgment from afar without actually knowing. I will say, for whatever reason, the things that look very strange. Let's just take Lonzo, for example, because he's out on his own now. He seems to have a very good relationship with his father, despite all the things that, say, you and I would do completely differently.
Right.
So that gives me pause when someone delves into this conversation, because I don't know how that dynamic works.
Yeah, you just look at decisions. Mike, we know more than a few parents out there who have made decisions for their kids in colleges. That guys have been to 3, 4, 5 different colleges. It doesn't work here for a week. I'm pulling my kid out. We're trying here. Pulling him out. We're trying here. And kids go along with that because the father wants to have the best interest of the kid in mind, no matter the sport. But I think for LeVar, we also see it as, from a parent side, as it's a little too self-serving as well. Too much, look at me, I'm maybe trying to help my kids, but look at me along the way as well. And that gets a little tedious. And right now, to me, it's all a little bit too much white noise at this point.
I think the part of this that really skews it is the business aspect, because he is someone that's trying to build a business with these kids. And so part of that is this air of self-promotion, because I think when you look at that, you guys would be the first to admit that with parents, there's different styles and there's no real one right way to do it.
Right.
And so that as long as moves are grounded, the things you do are grounded in love, I feel like that's enough of a reason to look at something and say, all right, I can at least understand where you're coming from. Is that what we're dealing with here, where maybe even if that's the case, because the business is present in the middle of it, it's a harder time to reconcile that? I'm, again, asking this stuff because your guys is a perspective that interests me.
It is a totally different perspective once you've been through that experience and you understand what's going on. So I can understand how you see the entertainment value of it more than anything else. We come at it from a completely different level. And look, that's the thing. At the end of the day, you hope that he's at doing what's best for the kids, not what's best for the brand or what's best for him. And we'll see how that plays out going forward with these two kids, 16 and 19-year-old now, going to play basketball for the cost of one price of a big baller brand shoes a month, basically $500. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and again,
with
this was by choice.
Yeah,
this was by choice. Both these kids were at a place, and they were pulled from those places. One I know was suspended, but at some point was going to play again, and the other pulled out of high school. So
16 or 19 years old.
Yep.
So we'll see how that plays out going forward for them. And we will continue now. It is time for, ladies and gentlemen,
Over, Under, with Golick and Wingo.
All right, Over Under brought to you by Amazon Music Unlimited. For a limited time only, sign up today and receive 3 months for 99 cents at amazon.com/music unlimited. You guys ready?
Yes.
Here we go. Over Under. Over Under. 0.5 100-yard games this season for Josh Gordon. Going the over?
I mean, they finish up against the Ravens. Going to be tough defense there. Bears have a good defense as well, and Steelers on the back end can struggle
and
unless they get to the
we don't know what
quarterback,
they'll be playing for.
What they're going to be playing for. Josh Gordon, I mean, already he's had 3 catches, 69 yards, 4 catches, 85 yards. Plus, he is always a step or two away from busting any catch he makes. So I definitely would take the over on this. I think he gets at least 1.
And I think it's going to be a volume play. You saw in that last game 11 targets to go along with the 4 receptions. So Deshaun Kaiser quickly realizing that this is far and away his best option in that receiving core. Why not feed the beast?
Yeah, I'm going to go over as well, and I don't think it's much of a contest, to be perfectly honest. Look, Hugh Jackson said as soon as he came back into the lineup, we're going to get a ton of plays ready for this kid, and I think it's going to come eventually. He's going to have that bust-out game. Like you said, we saw him in 2013, miss 2 games, still lead the league in receiving yards with 3 different quarterbacks that were named Brandon Weeden, Brian Hoyer, and Jason Campbell. Okay, that's pretty impressive.
Right.
I am absolutely going to take the over on that one. Staying in the NFL, over under 0.5 playoff wins for the Eagles this postseason.
I said it when Wentz got hurt and was going to go to Nick Foles. I am oddly still confident in that team to make a run in the playoffs. Because of what they have around them. The offensive line worries me a bit now that your quarterback is a little more stable in the pocket and doesn't have the escapability that Wentz did. But I'm still going to go over with that. I do think they have a good enough team all around to get more than 1 playoff win.
Yeah, I'm going to go over. I think the strength of that. I'm not much confident past that. I'm a lot less confident than you. I'll go over for this, but I don't know if I see them getting a second-round win once you get up into that territory, again, with how competitive the NFC has been top to bottom this season.
Well, look, it all depends on whether or not we believe they can get home field advantage, which they are having the inside track on right now because of the win over the L.A. Rams. So if you're giving them home field advantage, you're basically saying they're going to get to the NFC Championship game if you take the over. I feel like for radio conflict and diversity, I should take the under, but I think I'm going to take the over. No, you're asking. I'm going to be honest. I think I'm taking the over here. I believe if they play at home, they'll find a way to get a win. Look, they have been rolling at home this year, and I understand Carson Wentz was a big part of that, but so was that running game. 140-plus yards per game on the ground, second only to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they do it with 4 different backs. And I think that's the thing that gives me hope, or gives an Eagle fan hope, that because they have that running game that they can rely on, and Nick doesn't have to make a million different plays for them to win, I think I'm going to take the over there as well. All right, move on. Over-under 111 home runs that Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge will combine for next season. They combined for 111 in 2017.
As a team, the Yankees hit the most last year with 241. The Giants hit the least with 128. Man, you know what? You're so want to just say over on this. You just want to think it's going to go up. I don't know. For some reason, the first thing that came to mind was under. You know, that
seems prime for a regression.
It does. It just seems prime to say it can't be that good. While I'm not saying they're not going to still win a ton of games, but I think I'm going to go under on this one.
I think I'll go over just because of what we saw from Aaron Judge at the end of the season last year. We remember that slump after the home run derby where he had to kind of readjust to the way pitchers had adjusted to him. And I think his ability to do that, he demonstrated down the stretch in the postseason some. I think he can carry that forward. I think that's sustainable.
The big thing, sorry, Trey, is Stanton with more home games at the Yankees instead of the Marlins, and the difference in the parks.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I should maybe rethink my under, but because of that. But I'm not going to. I'm going to stick with under.
There you go.
I'm going to say under because how rare is it that people have back-to-back 50 home run seasons?
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, hey, Judge was great. Stanton was great. He's in a new surroundings. I just don't think that's going to happen. So, I mean, the odds of having back-to-back 50 home run seasons are very, very low, especially in this era where pitching has sort of come back a little bit, and it's not all about the long ball like it was in the 90s and the late 90s with Canseco and Sosa and McGuire and all that stuff. So I'm going to I'm going to play the history card. I'm playing my history card. You're not going to have I don't think you have two players with back-to-back 50 home run seasons, so I'm going to take the under there.
Did you say 3 players, Riley? 3 players have gone back-to-back 50 home run seasons.
So the fact that these two would do it in back-to-back seasons, I'm going to say no. And then we can play this back later when they both hit 65.
I can't wait because I'll be the one right one.
I'll wear it with a banner that has my history card right here crossed out.
Yeah.
So I will do that. All right, we move on. Over under 2.5 categories that the Killer Bees will lead in the league at the end of the season. And we're talking about the Steelers. No team in NFL history has ever had a quarterback with the most passing yards, a running back with the most rushing yards, and a receiver with the most receiving yards. Right now, Big Ben is second to Tom Brady. He was first before the Monday night game, and Le'Veon Bell is number 1 in rushing yards, and Antonio Brown is number 1 in receiving yards. So over under 2.5.
Wow, I'm going to me, the only question of this is if the Steelers are playing for something by the last game,
right?
Because I think they're going to do it. I mean, I think Big Ben, because of the way you can throw the ball and what Le'Veon Bell, even on a short pass, can turn into passing yardage that Ben gets, or the fact of what Antonio Brown does after the catch or on deep balls as well. I'm going to go over. I think that all 3 are going to lead in their particular categories, passing, rushing, and receiving yards.
I'm going to go under. I don't think Ben is going to pass Tom Brady. I think what we saw against Miami is going to end up being a way exception and not the rule. Now, he gave him a bit of a leg up because of that going into this weekend. My question is, who's in second behind Le'Veon and AB? Because you bring up what do the Steelers end up having to play for down the stretch. That's going to factor in a lot because what do the guys behind them have to play for when you look at the guys that might be close?
Kareem Hunt is 59 yards behind. There's actually 3 guys within less than 100 yards of Le'Veon Bell. Antonio Brown is 200 and some ahead.
Yeah,
of DeAndre Hopkins.
And going against a DeAndre Hopkins on a Houston team that no longer has the guy that was getting him a ton of those bulk yards. Atlanta struggled with Julio Jones. That one's sewn up. Le'Veon Bell's the interesting one because Kareem Hunt has struggled a ton in the back half of the season.
Todd
Gurley could be in the same situation, though, where we don't know how much they'll have to play for down the stretch at some point.
Well, the other thing, we've talked about sort of jokingly, Chris Boswell is now a Killer Bee, and I'm wondering where he is on the points list in kicking, and if he qualifies, because it seems like every week he's nailing a game winner for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think I'm going to go under 2 because I think that there might be Boswell is third in points, by the way. So if we put Boswell in there, I would take the over, but I think I'm going to take the under because I do think that Brady may surpass Ben when this is all said and done.
Ahead of him. Okay.
Yeah. So, and then we go to this one, which I think is really interesting. Todd McShay had his mock 1.0 draft, the first mock draft after the end of the college football regular season. 4.5 quarterbacks taken in the first round of the 2018 NFL Draft. He has 4: Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, and Baker Mayfield.
The other that would be, to make it over 4.5, would be probably Mason Rudolph from Oklahoma State. I think it's going to be 4, so I'm going to go under on that. And quarterback, a lot of teams can't help themselves. And where it gets iffy is that back half of the first round. Does somebody trade up into that back half to grab another one to make it the 5th one? But right now, I'll say under and I'll say 4.
Yeah, I'm gonna hammer to the under as well. Baker Mayfield's going to be interesting to watch in this, just in general. His rise and fall. His stock couldn't be higher right now. He'll have the playoffs to really show off. And then how does he do in the meetings and everything that lead up that we know can change a lot?
Well, I'm also going to take the under, but for a different reason. We're going to have a glut of veteran quarterbacks available in the market this year. You have Kirk Cousins. Teddy Bridgewater's contract is up. Case Keenum's contract is up. Sam Bradford's contract is up. Jimmy Garoppolo's contract is up. Might the Kansas City Chiefs move on from Alex Smith? Is Eli Manning going to be moving out of New York? And if all those veteran quarterbacks are on the market, I think that it'll be under because you'll have your choice between a rookie that we really don't know about, or can we go and deal with a veteran that we know. So I'm going to take the under because of that glut in the market.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold.
It's very interesting where that went.
We are delighted to have join us now on the phone lines is Simone Askew. She is the Army First Captain, the first ever African-American woman to have that honor, and including that honor meant she led the cadets onto the field last Saturday for the Army-Navy game, and she joins us now. Simone, thanks so much for being with us. Congratulations on an amazing honor. What did that feel like, breaking that barrier and leading that team onto the field?
Oh, it was such an exciting experience, especially because the Army-Navy game when I was just in 5th grade was the way in which I became attracted to the academies as well. So it was cool to think that hopefully, maybe not in the snow this year, but hopefully there's a young girl or young guy up in the stands looking at the cadets and being inspired to come to West Point one day. So it was great.
It's interesting, Simone, because your mom said it started when she saw the Navy midshipmen as a kid marching in formation.
Yeah.
So that it was the Navy midshipmen that got you involved, but somehow you ended up at Army.
Yeah, so I initially was attracted to the Naval Academy primarily because of its proximity to my house and really artificial justification. And as I learned more about the options in the military after graduation at the Naval Academy versus at West Point, I definitely was more attracted to the Army as it is a people business in comparison to the Air Force and the Navy where you're primarily working with machines.
Again, we're talking to Simone Askew as first captain. Again, it's the highest ranking cadet in chain of command. You got that the role you've had since August 14th, so you obviously knew what was coming with the Army-Navy game and had seen it, obviously. So leading up to that and the barrier that you had broken as well, you had a lot of time to kind of think about that. How nervous were you coming up to that and the thought process of just what you were accomplishing the day of the Army-Navy game?
Well, the good thing is that we had practice all week, so the cadets as well as myself were down at the football field practicing the march on for about 2 hours a day in the cold. So it wasn't anything we were unprepared for by any means. I would say the snow threw us off because you couldn't see the lines on the football field, which we helped guide us to our respective positions, but we adapted and overcame that. But, you know, I think it's more so just being really proud of our academy as we walk on to that field and setting the stage for success as we head into the football game.
Well, listen, that was a huge honor, but it's one of many honors that are coming your way as Army First Captain Simone Askew joins us on Golic and Wingo. You're set to graduate from West Point in May of 2018 as a second lieutenant, and then you're off to Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So what will you be studying over at Oxford?
So I'm looking at diplomatic studies and potentially women's studies. I'll more than likely do 2 master's programs while I'm over there. But my focus is genocide prevention. So anything that will help me pursue that passion of mine is something that I'm looking at to apply to.
Simone, I got to tell you, this sounds so amazing, but you're really bringing Mike and I down.
Yeah,
We're much older than you, and we haven't done half
smokes.
the things you've done in your life. Have you put into perspective the things you've been able to accomplish at the age of 21 already?
I don't think so. Maybe when I graduate and have a little time to breathe, but I'm just trying to pass my finals at this point. and once I can get over that hump, then maybe I can look back and celebrate a little.
And we know you have to get to class here in a few minutes, but also your sister Nina, who's 17, has been conditionally accepted to West Point. So how much did you influence that, or is it something she saw you and so through? Was it by words? Did you talk her into this, or was it just by action of what she's seen you accomplish?
So she actually became an Army fan as soon as she found out I was a Navy fan at a really young age. So I was attracted to the midshipmen, and as a result, of course, she had to be against me and has been an Army fan really since she was in the 2nd grade. So I didn't have to talk her into anything. If anything, she talked me into coming here. So I'm really excited for her to potentially come here next year and be a part of the same Long Gray Line that I'm so proud of.
Well, listen, I'm sure the Long Gray Line is just as proud as you are of it. But listen, I know you got to run to class, but we've all been dying to know, what class are you headed to right now?
So I'll actually be having a meeting with the Commandant for about an hour, and then I'll head to my graduate scholarship program class right after that.
And what real quickly, because we know you got to go, we just did like math and English and history when we were in school. What's the most interesting name of one of the classes you're taking right now, or that you have taken?
So I would say my favorite one was American Exceptionalism, and in that class we talked a lot about the literature and the theory behind Americans and a lot of our national leaders thinking that America is the best country in the entire world, and just arguing whether it's justified or not, and maybe some things to prove that or disprove that. And really it was focused on the discussion and the conspiracy of that exceptionalism that we claim and really cling to. So that was a really awesome class for me because it definitely challenged a lot of thoughts that I had being in the military and being an American. But it's all beneficial to help us grow and see new perspectives for sure.
Did you get an A?
Yes, I did.
Of course she did. You had to ask that question?
I just figured I'd ask.
By the way, if anything, I think what you're doing now personifies American exceptionalism.
Exactly right.
So, Simone, we really appreciate you being with us. Congratulations on the honor this past weekend. Now get to class. We don't want you to be late,
no,
okay?
Thanks, sir.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
Let's not expect too much. There's only one person out there that's expecting way too much out of this guy too early. We know who that is. It's his father.
By the way, you know who doesn't care at all about the Packers playoff chances?
Who?
That would be Ron Rivera, the head
he's
coach
worried about his own.
of the Carolina Panthers, and he joins us now on Golic and Wingo. Ron, thanks for being with us. I always appreciate your time. So Aaron Rodgers coming back this week. What did that do, if anything, to how you're going to game plan this Green Bay Packers offense?
It didn't do anything, guys. I mean, in all honesty, a few weeks ago when we first heard that he was throwing the balls on the sidelines, I think it was before the Pittsburgh game, maybe even before that, the anticipation was that he was coming back. We knew that their whole goal was to try and keep themselves in playoff position. They've done that. So it doesn't surprise me, and we weren't surprised, and we felt we should just go ahead and game plan for what they do, the thing that they've done in the past with Aaron, and then react from there. So our whole attitude and our whole outlook coming up against Green Bay was we expected to play against Aaron Rodgers.
Ron, a lot of times, rather than scouting the team you're going to play, self-scouting a lot of times can take care of a lot of issues for you. And other than getting some healthy players back, what has been the biggest difference on the field for you guys in winning 5 of your last 6 games?
Well, I think it's exactly that. It's we have gotten some healthy guys back, but I do think we're playing better. And I heard your comment about, at the end of the year, it's how you're playing. And that's one of the things that we wanted to do was be trending up once we got into December to give ourselves an opportunity to get into the playoffs. I think a big part of it, too, is, our quarterback, again, he didn't have a normal off season. He had the surgery. He didn't have OTAs and minicamp. He had a little bit of a setback during training camp. He didn't have the type of training camp you would like to. Couple that with some of the new players you have around him. Couple that with the trade we made in the middle of the year, and I think we've really started to find our footing as a football team, which I think is very important, especially this time of the year.
Ron Rivera, Panthers head coach, joins us on Golic and Wingo. And Ron, we had Thomas Davis on NFL Live yesterday, and he talked a little bit about the confidence this team has, knowing that they have gone into New England and beaten the Patriots, and then had a home game against one of the hottest teams in the NFL, the Minnesota Vikings, and really pushed them around. I know it was a close game down the stretch, but really dominated that team up front, and then Cam makes the super play with that 62-yard run to set up the game-winning touchdown by Jonathan Stewart. Where is the confidence level of your team heading into this matchup?
Oh, I think it's solid. I think it's where it needs to be, especially this time of year. I think the guys feel good about the things that we've accomplished and we've done so far. But, again, this really is a league about what have you done for me lately. So, all that can disappear if you don't come out and play well, especially against another good football team led by a very good quarterback.
How is, we talk about Greg Olsen coming back. He comes back and nicked again, sits out. Such a great player. Ed Dixon, quite honestly, has done a nice job sitting in at times for
Tremendous.
him. No doubt about that. But Greg obviously seems to be a week-to-week guy. Where is he now?
I think he's taken another big step. I think last week playing the entire game really built confidence. The tough thing about it was he was slated to come back against New York. That was a turf field. That was that new turf or whatever it's called. And then the next game against New Orleans was on that turf. And so after what happened with New York, we opted not to play him against New Orleans to give him a chance to get to Minnesota on the grass. He came out of that game and he had a lot of confidence, came out of practice yesterday and looked like the old Greg. He ran some really good routes yesterday, seemed to move around, cut, and pivot off of that foot with really no thought about it. So I think his confidence is back to where it needs to be in terms of being healthy again.
Ron Rivera with us on Golic and Wingo, and you mentioned Cam and the things he's been able to do. We talked about that 62-yard run. He's only averaging about 210 yards passing per game, the lowest of his career, but his rushing yards are up to over 45, which would be the second most in a season. So as you're looking at Cam and the way he's going to lead this offense, is it more about his running now, or is it more about trying to get that passing game going?
I think it's more about keeping the balance more than anything else. You know, in some games when he's had to throw the ball for over 200 yards, he has, and the result has been a victory for us. Other times when he's needed to run the ball, he's ran it for us and resulted in the victory, especially down the stretch so far. I think the one thing about it, too, is not just his running, but us running as a football team. If you can control the clock, if you can keep the other offenses off the field, it helps your defense, and it helps your team as a whole. So I think that's probably one of the more important things is really, you know, when we need him to do what he does, you know, he's got to come through for us, whether it is throwing the ball, whether it is running. But right now, him running the ball has helped us, and it's been very effective.
Yeah, to that point, since his rookie year, he's the only player in the NFL with at least 5 rushing touchdowns every season. Not the only quarterback,
right?
The only player that has at least 5 rushing touchdowns every season since 2011.
Again, we're talking to Ron Rivera, head coach of the Carolina Panthers. He was a second-rounder back in '84. The Bears won that Super Bowl in '85, NFL Coach of the Year in 2013. And 2015, off the beaten path on one. We saw that game in Buffalo with the snow. How were you like that? Were you a I don't mind playing in the snow kind of a guy?
Yeah, that's exactly, because you had no choice. Being in Chicago, shoot, you were to get snow, ice, sleet, hail, whatever. You had to play, or fog for that matter. You were
on the fog ball, yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep, you remember that.
Yeah. Thanks, he says.
It was a lot of fun. It really was. It's one of those things that you dream about as a kid, that someday you're going to play in, you know, in a whole bunch of snow or rain or in a muddy field. And, you know, I saw that. It was kind of cool. And, you know, it's funny because I was able to text back and forth with some of the guys I know up in Buffalo, obviously, and we laughed about, you know, what they went through. It's easy to when you win for them, so it was kind of cool.
Ron, we know you got a big game to get ready for, so we won't keep you too long, but I want to ask you about Cam Newton and his post-game attire. I mean, he had the brimless sort of fez, for lack of a better term, this past weekend, and Tim Hasselbeck has come up with a saying. He doesn't think what Cam is wearing is an outfit. He thinks every week it seems to be a costume. How much do you guys wait to see what Cam Newton is going to wear in those post-game press conferences?
Well, we've gotten to the point where we find the humor in it. You know, the thing is, you know, he's just making a statement on his own. You know, he wants to be his own guy. You know, and I think that's part of who he is, and so we're, you know, I mean, it to me, there's really no harm in it. I'm not quite sure why, you know, some people get all disappointed or upset about it, because again, he's just kind of being his own guy, making his own statement, and that's off the field, you know. And then that to me, really, I'm not concerned about. It's not anything he's doing on the field. I don't think it hurts anybody in the locker room unless somebody takes offense to the way he dresses. As a statement, and I just don't get it. But you know, it's like a friend says to me, we've made the interesting important.
And oh, by the way, he looks better in it than we would look in it. There's no doubt about that. And Ron, that was kind of a fun question. I'm going to ask you a serious one. I gave kind of, you know, when you were in the league, we were in the league basically the same time. We're the same age. If what we are reading is true in a few years, and they do come out with a CTE test for people that are living, because right now it can only be an autopsy. Would that be something? Would you get that test?
No, because you know what's interesting is there's been a lot of guys that played before us that lived well into their 70s and 80s. I mean, they had, for the most part, good lives, and you know, at the end they seem to have the natural thing happen. So I'm not overly concerned with it. I mean, right now I think, you know, I'm still pretty good with my faculties and everything. Maybe if I start having a little some issues, maybe I would. But right now, I don't think so, because again, you go back and you think about all those guys that have lived into the 70s and 80s, and you know, I mean, one of the guys that I always kind of look towards a lot of things is Coach Ditka. I mean, Mike Ditka played in the league, and you know, I mean, I know he's off the chain sometimes, but for the most part, Coach is cool. I mean, and it's always good to see Coach Ditka.
Well, listen, Ron, we appreciate the time, and I know you got a busy game coming up this weekend, a few days to prepare, so we appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys.
This has been the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast. Make sure to subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, and to listen every weekday morning at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and the ESPN app.